Plet has quite a history with model aviation, and Stoffpot radio flyers started some 20 odd years ago, and we were lucky enough to fly in Kurland. Then the Goodrums came down to Plet permanently and really got the interest in gliding going, and we have now 7 or 8 pilots that are fairly active gliding, and the 2025 Nationals were then scheduled to be done in Plet, and we were lucky enough to get the amenities at Kurland Polo Club for us to fly it. The club used to be here, and then because of the power plans, the neighbours complained, etc. And now it's our privilege to be at Kurland and have the visitors from the rest of the country to see us. Plet's been normally a wonderful bubble to live in. The weather's not so good for the first couple of days, but I think the next couple of days will prove to be very advantageous, and we hope that everybody will come and visit us in the future. Thank you.
So, Ken, just out of interest, can you give us a little bit of history of your flying, how you got into it, and flying in competitions, etc.?
I started my flying way back at the quarry near Midrand with Northeastern Radio Flyers. I then flew Durban Model Flying Club, and then moved back to Johannesburg, where I flew out at Silverton and also Gems. That really got my interest going in gliding. I started off with F3K, and as the age takes over from you, you find that you can't launch as well. And I've dabbled in power, and my passion now is gliding and moving on to big scale gliders. So that's where I'm very much a modeler, so I build and don't normally buy. So I've got a very well-equipped workshop, and that's my hobby. I spend my life building and flying aeroplanes.
Cool. And what was your career? Again, I remember us having a chat on the slope once about your military.
Yes, I was in the South African Navy Citizen Force for a number of years. Hence, when we went to Saw at Red Hill, Slope Saw at Red Hill, Simonstown was in the background. My qualification is as an electrical engineer from Wits, and I still dabble around in consulting where they need some experience.
Okay, so have you done some big projects in your career in terms of electrical engineering?
Yes, we electrified Soweto, which was quite a large project. 2010 we were involved in the design of the electrical installations to 2 of the major stadiums, the biggest one being in Mpumalanga, and shopping centres, townships, you know. I've had 40 odd years as a consulting engineer.
Okay, so which consulting firm did you work for?
Originally I started with GH Marine Partners, then I joined Watson Edwards van der Spey. It became known as Webs, and then they were bought out by WSP in the UK. Okay. And for the last 15 odd years I've been in private practice on my own.
Okay, nice. So how long have you been living in Plet now?
We've been in Plet permanently for 5 years, although I've owned property for over 30 years in Plet. So we go back a long way. My mum and dad had their honeymoon here in 1946.
Sure.
So we've been here a long time.
Okay, excellent. We have John Monk, and I'm going to ask him a couple of questions about his flying, and we're just going to follow whatever. So John, tell us about the first time you entered into a competition. I mean, when was that, and what did you fly? Can you remember?
I do, very clearly. I just finished matric, and I had a new radio, and I built a Killer, Electronics Killer, that I spent a good few months building. And we had a competition at the old Kailami Gliding Club. And I had flown a bit before, but my first competition I was a bit nervous, and on the very first flight I popped off the line into the sun, lost sight of the aircraft and crashed it between the spectators. So not an auspicious start, but that's how I got started in competitions, yeah, and kind of rebuilt and designed and built new planes and went from there.
And over the years you eventually made it into the national team, and you went to Israel, was that right?
Yes, correct, yeah. So we were, I actually went to go watch the first World Champs in Württemberg, that's Centurion these days, in 1977. as a 16-year-old kid, and
You want to move inside while
and
it's
no,
raining?
I'm fine for now.
Okay.
And got quite intrigued by the whole hobby then. And then because of the apartheid side of things, we were banned for a number of years, like 10 years. We were allowed back in 1991, but we couldn't get a team together, and the vote to send one guy across to learn something was not taken up. And so we started a team selection process. I can't remember if I was in charge of FTB, but I wrote a simple little process. You had to do a certain speed and a certain number of laps and a certain duration score. And you had to do that at least twice or 2 rounds, in other words, as part of the team selection. If you qualified for that, you then go into a proper team selection process. And there were only 3 of us that actually managed to do that. And so that became the team. And we went across in '93 to Israel. We went with the winches that were completely incorrect. They're large diameter drums and narrow winches. Everybody else had these little diameters and long drums. And we had to buy a line from the Israelis to get something competitive. And we spent the first night there modifying one of the winches. The local Israeli Aero Club helped us remachine the one winch drum.
Through the night?
Through the night. We got back, I think, to our kibbutz at about 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 in the morning or something crazy. And next day we were competitive. So that's how we flew. That was the first world champs that we allowed back to. And a fun story I'd forgotten about until Rudy mentioned it, that my first flight there, my transmitter had been in the transmitter pound, and it had been turned on the whole time. So when I got it, I didn't realize that. So the first duration flight, I launched, and probably a minute into the flight, transmitter started beeping, low battery. And this is my first flight in the World Champs. And I had to turn the transmitter off and watch the plane, and if it started banking too steeply, turn on and correct it slightly and turn off again. And the whole duration flight, those days were 7 minutes, was probably more off than on. And then the only really nerve-wracking part was the landings. Coming into land, I had to leave it on the whole time. So the whole landing approach and landing was with the transmitter beeping at me, the battery's about to go flat. But we had a good time, good worlds, and we learned a lot. And that was the main thing, bring back all that knowledge. And then Craig Goodenough and Rodney and them were there. And yeah, the guys picked up for there and ran with it. I got married the following year. That was the end of my World Champs episodes, but it was good fun, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, John.